Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gangana Sadrisham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalam Achalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami.
Hello, welcome. These teachings are from a work assigned to Adi Sankaracharya, which is called Aparokshanabuthi, or self-realization, or direct perception of the self, of the Atman. And it is an introduction to Vedanta. It speaks about Raja Yoga with a Vedantic vision. So listen very carefully to these teachings, reflect upon them, then meditate upon these teachings so that they can bear fruit in your heart. May you all find freedom. Moving on, verse 63. Just as it is water that appears as ripples and waves, or again it is copper that appears in the form of a vessel, so it is Atman that appears as the whole universe. So, despite the different names and different forms, apparent names and apparent forms, it is only the Atman that appears. As the eyes are trained to see names and forms, they will not see its substratum, the Atman. Just as it is earth that appears under the name of a jar, or it is the threads that appear under the name of a cloth, so it is Atman that appears under the name of universe. This Atman is to be known by negating the names. So always by negating the names and the forms, can the substratum be thought of, contemplated upon, and then realized. But if your eyes are only grasping the name and the form, its substratum will never be realized. People perform all their actions in and through Brahman. On account of ignorance, they are not aware of that. Just as through ignorance, persons do not know that jars and other earthenwares are nothing but earth. So people perform all their actions in and through Brahman. Okay, I will also make this verse a little bit different. I will make the sentence look, people perform all their actions in and through God. It is the same significance. So, again, Brahman and God, we can establish the same relationship because it is the same consciousness, the same identity, the only and one presence. So it is also correct to say this. The one who is swimming into God is to drown himself in there, to dissolve himself into God consciousness. So also the one who is swimming in Brahman, in the ocean of consciousness, is to become consciousness by dissolving its ignorance. But is not aware. Just as through ignorance, persons do not know that jars and other earthenwares are nothing but earth. Because they are looking at the form and the name given. They are unaware of the substratum of it, of what they are made of. And so what they really stand for. But this God and Brahman, again reinforcing that those who seek God realization, they see God as an end, not a means to an end, but as an end. Then it is the same as Brahman. Not philosophically, of course. Philosophically, they are different in terms of concepts, but of experience, of realization, they are identical. They are the same, not identical because it means two different things, but they are just the same thing. Just as there ever exists the relation of cause and effect between earth and a jar, so does the same relation exist between Brahman and the phenomenal world. This has been established here on the strength of the scriptural texts and reasoning. So, in this case, cause and effect being the same, it means that cause and effect are the same substance. They are Brahman, because only Brahman exists. Only God exists. And because otherwise we are establishing the reality of the phenomenon world, and it's not the case. So what they have in common is that they are the same thing, and that is Brahman. Just as the consciousness of earth forces itself upon our mind while thinking of a jar, so also does the idea of ever-shining Brahman flash on us while contemplating on the phenomenal world. Atman, though ever pure, meaning without any modifications, apparent modifications, to a wise man always appear impure to an ignorant one, just as a rope always appears in two different ways, to a knowing person and an ignorant one. So to the ignorant one, the rope appears as a snake. To the knower, it appears as a rope. So the Atman always appears without any modifications, pure as the rope, but to the ignorant one, it appears as modifications, as a snake. Just as a jar is all earth, so also this body, all consciousness. The division, therefore, into the self and non-self is made by the ignorant one to no purpose. Well, it's kind of unavoidable. It's not that it is made by. Ignorance creates this distinction. So it is, actually, it's not made by the ignorant. It is made by ignorance to the one that observes. But it is all just Atman. Just as a rope is imagined to be a snake and an acre to be a piece of silver, so is this Atman determined to be the body by an ignorant person. Again, an ignorant person is the one that perceives names and forms, not its substratum, but it is Atman alone. Just as earth is thought of as a jar and threads as a cloth, so is Atman. Again, just the same comparisons. Just as gold is thought of as an earring and water as waves, so is the Atman, thought of to be the world. So again, names and forms, ignoring the substractum. Not ignoring, but not being aware of, not perceiving the substractum. Just as a stump of a tree is mistaken for a human figure and the mirage for water, so is the Atman mistaken with the world. Again, in the shady light, a stump of a tree is mistaken by a person, and a mirage is mistaken by water. And these visions are real for the one who is having them, but is mistaken image. So the Atman is always mistaken by the phenomenal world. Just as a mass of woodwork is thought of as a house, and iron as a sword, so is the Atman thought of as the Atman. Just as one sees the illusion of a tree on account of water, so does a person on account of ignorance see Atman as the body. So this is making an allusion to the reflex of a tree into a body of water. And if the water is crystal clear, you can see perfectly the tree and you mistaken the water for a tree. And so it is with the Atman. When only Atman is perceiving the Atman, when I say Atman, the observer is perceiving the Atman, the observed, only Atman is there. But by the illusion of being a form, then other forms are observed unavoidably. Just as to a person being in a boat, everything appears to be in motion, so does one. So again, optical illusions are being discussed here as a way to understand how illusion works. So when you're in a boat and moving, the land sometimes seems to be moving, trees seems to be moving, and it is just an optical illusion. Just as to a person suffering from a defect, jaundice, white things appear as yellow, so one which is suffering from ignorance, the Atman appears as the phenomenal world. Just as to a person with defective eyes, everything appears to be defective, so one under ignorance also sees in an ignorant way. So when there's a conditioning in the organs of perception, that perception is conditioned to the deficiency in the organs of perception. So always through the physical eyes, physical objects are perceived only according to its own nature. But when true vision appears, only the Atman is realized. Just as a firebrand, through mere rotation, appears circular like the sun, so does the Atman appears to be the world. So a firebrand, when you rotate it fast, it appears to be just a perfect circle, and it isn't. It's just a dot. So again, optical illusions. Just as things that are really large appear to be very small, owing to great distance, so does one. Again, optical illusions. Just as all objects that are very small appear to be large when viewed through lenses, so does one mistaken sees everything as the phenomenal world, but it is only Atman alone. And again, the organs of perception, and perceptions being conditioned by the organs of perception. Just as a surface of glass is mistaken for water, or vice versa, so does the Atman is mistaken by the phenomenal world. Just as a person imagines a jewel in fire, or vice versa, so does one imagines the phenomenal world in the Atman. Just as when clouds move, the moon appears to be in motion, again, just as a person through confusion loses all distinction between different points of the compass, just as the moon, when reflected in water, appears to one as unsteady, so does the Atman appears as the world. Thus, through ignorance arises in Atman the delusion of the body, which again, through self-realization, disappears in the Supreme Atman. The delusion of the body, which again, through self-realization, disappears in the Supreme Atman. It is a delusion, it has never really appeared. So it doesn't really disappear. Only the Atman is always there, but not perceived. When the whole universe, movable and immovable, is known to be Atman, and thus the existence of everything else is negated, where is then any room to say that the body is Atman? So when the whole universe, movable and immovable, is known to be Atman, and thus the existence of everything else is negated by that clear vision, where is then any room to say that the body is Atman? Well, because there is no body when the whole universe, movable or immovable, is known to be Atman. There is no body, there is just Atman. So there is no room to say anything about a body. O enlightened one, pass your time always contemplating on Atman while you are experiencing all the results of prarabdha, for it ill becomes you to feel distressed. So, O enlightened one, pass your time contemplating on Atman. If you're an enlightened one, of course you'll be passing your time contemplating on Atman, because that's the only thing your eyes will see. While you are experiencing all the results of prarabdha, well, this sentence is arranged as it can. For it ill becomes you to feel distressed, because how can you be distressed if you're an enlightened one? You're always contemplating on Atman, despite whatever is happening to the body, which is just the product of prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma is that karma that was responsible for the appearance of that body, the circumstances that that body undergoes, and whatever that body has to go through. It is only due to prarabdha karma. There's nothing to do about it. So just contemplate on the Atman as all of these appearances unfold. The theory one hears of from the scripture that prarabdha does not lose its hold upon one even after the origination of the knowledge of Atman is now being refuted. Of course, it is being refuted, because if you're not the body anymore, if you have the supreme realization of your real identity of Atman, so how can there be any karma prarabdha for you? But prarabdha is spoken of for those ignorant ones that observe the enlightened one and say, so, but if his karmas are burnt, if he has realized himself, why is he going through those things? This is just for the explanation for the ignorant ones. Because the karmas that brought forth that body, brought forth the story of the body, the destiny of the body, and the body will undergo all these different circumstances, despite self-realization has occurred. But for the realized one, it makes no difference, because it's not for him. He is the Atman already. He is totality. So whatever is happening to the body, it is of no avail to him. But this is a verse which is being brought forth to refute the theory of prarabdha karma. Okay.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.